Hello, BookTube. Sorry for the late arrival to my own stream. The Bean and I were outside and we ran across two dogs who would, in a normal universe, if she were a normal person, they would be her friends. Boris and Mowgli, two wonderful dogs. Yes, they're both 5 times bigger than she is, but that's not their fault, and they're not trying anything. But oh boy, as bossy as she is with all other dogs, if the dog has the nerve to be big, oh, so they know better. They sort of avoid her like a radioactive containment zone, but they both zero in on me. They both come to me for big face smooshes and whatnot. That slowed me down. But I wanted to talk to you, my throat clearing, before I get to the chat, uh, about Norse mythology, about the world of Norse mythology, where where the gods know that their end is coming. They don't know exactly when it will be. They know the signs that will lead up to it, the Fimble winter, but they don't know when that will happen. So they go on about their business. But they know that their end is coming. They don't think they're going to live forever. They know they're not. Scalds have told them that the stretched skein of their fates is measured. And that even they, even the greatest of them, will die. Thor, for instance, knows that he will die in battle with the Midgard serpent, that he will kill it, but that it will kill him as well. But he goes on anyway. They all go on anyway. When, if you come to think about it, when the final forces of darkness gather and the Rainbow Bridge is shattered and Fenris Wolf is unchained, Thor could flee. He doesn't have to fight the Midgard serpent. He knows that if he does fight the Midgard serpent, he's going to die. He could try to avoid that, but he doesn't. Because all the gods know that it's not the end, that from the ashes of the burned cinder of their world will come a new world, full of new people and maybe even new gods. Thor's sons survive Ragnarok. So they push on through disaster, knowing that's the reason why. And I feel the same way about my book collection. How's that for the most self-grandizing segue of all time? I feel the same way about my book collection. It has reached a point. It's ironic to say because it's never been this small when I wasn't traveling, but it's reached a point of no return. It has reached a point where I am set to grapple with the Midgard serpent, and one of us will die, or maybe both. But a new and better world will arise from that conflict. I now have books double stacked. I have books cantilevered and jammed in, and more to the point, beyond the point of storage. I also have my books have overflown the boundaries of my mental card catalog, my mental inventory. I no longer know whether or not I have a book, and that's a sure sign either of early onset dementia or of the fact that you have too many books. I don't care if I don't know how many books I have on my iPad. I don't know how many books I have on my iPad, and I don't care. Because they don't take up any space and they're easy to find. It's easy to get to them. I could go to the iBooks on any native to any Apple device, or the Barnes & Noble Nook app, which for some reason I just like. I like the way it works. Or, of course, the Kindle app. I could go to any one of those three, or the app Read Era, which I also have, and simply type into the search bar the word Ragnarok or Midgard Serpent, and it would immediately give me all of the books and all of the references where that takes place in an instant, instead of wandering all around Hyde Cottage and maybe pulling books down to look at the ones behind it and trying to remember where I would have put the relevant volume. I don't have to do that on this little iPad. I don't have to do it on the great big iPad, and I don't have to do it on my Kindle. And I wouldn't have to do it on my iPad Mini 6 if one of you would send me one, but no one sent me an iPad Mini 6 yet. A little iPad Mini 6 with 250 gigs of storage. Oh, good Lord. Oh, good Lord. But anyway, the point is not to guilt you about technology. I would never do that. It's instead to point out that these print and paper books are now officially out of hand. And something major needs to be done with them. And I think we all know, maybe we all like to deny it, but I think we all know the first step when something major needs to happen with your print and paper library. And that is that a big log has to be pulled out of the log jam. You can't finesse and finnick your way around a problem when it gets this big. I need to drop 2,000 books. Just flat out get rid of 2,000 books, and then I can make sense of what remains. So that's on my mind. That's definitely on my mind. Here, I'm not including the parade of books that I get in the mail. Those are separate completely. And I'm also not including the books that are in the little book room. They are sacred. I go to them regularly. So they sort of are exempted. That still leaves 5,000 books, 35 bookcases. And that is too much. Once upon a time, for most of my life, I would not have said that was too much. I would have said the 5,000 was on the very low end. You want to be up around 8,000. But that was before ebooks. That was before the ease and the comfort of ebooks. And ebooks exist now, and they're not tenuous. They're not hard to use. I've had thousands and thousands of hours of great reading on a tablet of one kind or another, whether it's e-ink or a backlit screen. And the technology is not going anywhere. It's not improving by leaps and bounds as I would like it to do, but it's not going away. Those ebooks are there. They're easily maneuverable. They cover a lot of ground. I look around me at the books here in just one room of Hyde Cottage, and I don't know, probably a good solid 80% of these things are either things that I don't consult enough to have a print and paper copy anyway, or they're a print and paper copy of which I have an electronic copy. Well, I know I say this all the time. I say this every year. I say this several times a year, several hundred times a year in videos, but something needs to be done about these books. I have reached a point of Ragnarok where I know that the process ahead might be fatal, but I have to do it anyway for a brighter world to come. I have to do it anyway because I feel certain that I can make this into something that I like, that I actually like, and that I don't want to increase by huge leaps and bounds. The key here is a big logjam removal. And the two parts of that are to dump 2,000 books and also to get rid of the bookcases. Once the bookcases are empty, put them out on the garbage. Somebody will take them in 5 minutes. They won't have to wait for the garbage truck. They'll be gone in 5 minutes. The key is to downsize. And then I can make sense of what I have. Now, I don't know. I know that I want to do this. I just don't know how or when. It has to happen before the end of the year. But I'm thinking it's entirely possible that I'm going to have a bookish guest in just a month. And if that happens, maybe I want to do that whole stock taking with that guest to also move around books. And also that guest and I are going to be hunting books. Maybe I make that grand road trip the last hurrah before I take this into serious consideration, before I take this in hand and make major changes. Should I do that? Or should I do it now? Am I just putting this off because I don't want to face it? I don't know. That is so close that it makes me think I'm not being artificial to think about it. But I don't know. But anyway, I want that the throat clearing I wanted to do before we get to the chat, which I'm guessing mentally that I know what most of you want to talk about. But before we get to the chat, I wanted to say that my books have reached an inflection point of some kind, and something relatively soon needs to be done. I need to fix this problem before the end of this year. And we're almost at the end of August. As unbelievable as that seems, we're almost at the end of August. That gives me 3 months: September, October, and November. December, I won't be good for anything. And after that, I'm gone. So that's time enough to get this done. But I have to take it in hand, and I don't quite know how. I don't quite know what to do. Like, for instance, there was a time during the summer when I got every American Civil War book that came my way from the Brattle Bookshop. And they happened to buy a collection, so there were quite a few of them. I was getting lots and lots of really solid, great pieces of literature for $1 a piece. And I read them all, or a large chunk of them. There's a couple that I haven't got to. Okay, do I need to keep those? Or can't I box them up and send them to Bill Rutenberg? Do I really need to keep them? Do they need to be here? When that's just one example. There are many, many, many other examples. So, that's my quandary for tonight. That's all. I've uploaded a couple of videos. I have one other video that's uploading today, a tag, that's causing problems. I've noticed this in the last 2 weeks, where I will make a bunch of videos. I will upload them all. I'll start to upload them all. They'll all be doing just fine. They'll all be just slowly, not good Wi-Fi here at Hyde Cottage. They'll just be slowly turning over. And when I go back and remember, to finalize them all and actually publish them, one of them will say, checks are taking longer than usual. Check back later. Only it doesn't feel alive. That notice doesn't feel alive. It feels dead. The video feels dead. And it turns out the video is dead. The first few times I thought, okay, well, I've checked on this now for 5 hours. It isn't moving at all. The notation isn't any different. There's no sign that anyone even knows this video is here. There's no signs that any checks are happening. The first few times I did that. And then like the fourth or fifth time that one video in the patch said that, I decided to publish all the others and just leave that one going. And 4 days later, it was completely dead. It had hit a deadline. The line was still, checks are taking longer than normal. Please check back later. It was obviously a dead video. It was not uploading anymore. No explanation for that. No explanation for it on Reddit. No explanation for it from YouTube itself. No explanation why a video would unpredictably just hit a dead end without any outward sign. So I never know which video it's going to be. I never know what's going to happen in any one batch of videos. And it happened today. One of the videos that I was uploading just stopped, just said, nope, we're not doing this anymore. Your video is taking longer than expected. Please wait. And that's it. You're done. So that is still happening. I have got to the point now where when I see that notice, that looks and feels different from any other notice, I immediately start re-uploading that video. And that happened today. I did a tag video today, and I uploaded the video, and it got all the way to the end and then had that message and looked dead, just completely frozen in stone. So I immediately started uploading that video again. It got all the way to the end, and for the first time ever, it also has reached that notice. So I don't know what's going to happen here. I have no idea. Am I ever going to be able to upload this video? I don't have any idea. I guess I'll keep trying, but that's the state of affairs here. So I wanted to tell you all that about books and about my struggles with videos. And now let's take a look at the chat and see what we can find. Jed Donahue. Too late for us UK folks, but for those of you who watch, enjoy yourself. Nice try. Oh, good. We start off with Jewish mother guilt. First of all, it's not too late for everyone in the UK. I'm sure there'll be plenty of people in this chat in the UK. And also, the enjoy yourself after you've scolded me. Yeah. Anyway, Nietzsche and Wig is here. I'm UK, but I'm going to watch it anyway. Who needs sleep? Well, I don't. But James Holder, how's your latest fiction writing project going? What fiction writing project? I'm worthless. I'm scum when it comes to fiction writing. Scum. I had an idea to do a fiction writing project for September and October prior to NaNoWriMo. And I still do have that idea. I still have plenty of time to decide on something and research it and launch it. But now, instead of thinking, you failed for Camp NaNoWriMo, now I'm thinking, you better prep for NaNoWriMo. NaNoWriMo in November, I know exactly what I'm doing. And I'm certainly going to do it. But I should be writing between then and now. There's no doubt in my mind that I should be. But right now, it's not going at all. Jenny Park. Excuse me. Jenny Park says, I need sleep, but these streams are fun. Why, thank you. J. Scott Phillips. Stevestream about books. It's about time. Yes, about grappling with books, as one does with the Midgard Serpent, Jormungand. I'm grappling with my books. For real. I want a solution to this problem by the end of the year. Tolstoy 111, go to bed, UK people. I've got this one. Bookends of books. Hello, I was looking for my daily dose of Pride and Prejudice, but I suppose a live will have to do as well. The Pride and Prejudice video did go up. It was not one of the ones that just froze and said, no, I'm sorry, we're not going to do this. It wasn't one of those videos that did, so it should be up. But the tag video just will not upload. No idea why. It's not longer than the others. It's just completely frozen. And for the first time ever, it's froze twice. So I guess Another option would be for me to just delete it and upload, try again, and just keep trying until it happens. But there's another video of mine coming out. I am so bad with technical problems. I hate fighting with inanimate objects. I just give up immediately. But anyway, Jenny Parks, it's a lie, LOL. It's just clickbait. No, I did talk about books. I do want to fix this book problem. I need to do something. When it gets like this, I always think about the A-bomb solution, which is just to have the books that fit in the little book room. Just tell myself that is all the space you have for books. That's all the space that most people have for books. It's more than all the space that a lot of people have for books. I always tell myself when I get to that point, no, a larger print and paper library is not an extravagance for someone who lives in books. It's not an extravagance for you to have 2 rooms of books instead of 1. But right now I'm at 3 or 4 rooms full of books. There's no way. Anyway, Nostalgia at Night Review says, Steve, thank you for all the wonderful book recommendations. Why, thank you. Tolstoy 111 says, anyone who thinks books will come up in this stream, I have to bridge to sell you. Not going to happen. Nietzsche and Wiggs has been reading James Baldwin. Gola says, hey, Steve, how's it going? Hello to everyone else. Nietzsche and Wiggs says, a very angry man with a lot to be angry about. Daniel Tenney is here saying, good evening. Mark says, I've got John Cagg's books coming in the mail. I skimmed through American philosophy and saw the dreaded term dead white men, and now I'm worried. Hope that doesn't encapsulate the overall tone. Well, you notice that you didn't consult with me. Tolstoy 111 says, speaking of mythology, Lynn Carter called The Wood Beyond the World the first modern fantasy novel. Do you like William Morris? No. Little spoiler, neither does anybody else. J. Scott Phillips, I've always understood from these Steve streams that Ragnarok will come at 10 past the hour. Yes, Ragnarok will come at 10 past the hour. But we're not there yet. I need to deal with these books. The main question in my mind is, do I deal with them now or do I wait until I have company? And will company make it worse? If I have a bookish person over here, will that make it worse? Will that make it harder? Daniel Tenney, I'm feeling excited. I just got a mail call of Penguin Classics of the Arabian Nights, Beowulf, and the Histories of Herodotus. Good Lord. Did you spring for all 3 volumes of the Arabian Nights? Daniel Tenney of the Tennies, of the New England Tennies. That reading guy says, you finally time a Steve stream when it's convenient for me. I don't have to listen to the old comments from all those other vermin. No, you're right. I thought, what would work for that reading guy? Gola says, the new and better world is Kindle and yes, iPad. I agree. But to what extent do I agree? I have long since reconciled myself with the fact that I am not brave enough to get rid of my print and paper books. I am not brave enough to do that. But I don't need this many of them. No way. But I don't think I need to restrict myself to just what will fit in the little book room. Nietzsche and Wig is back. I cleared out some more books yesterday, Steve. It is such a surefire way of reducing anxiety over unread books. Even better, I found my selected Auden, which was buried beneath other books. Well, I don't have a problem with unread books, but I have noticed in the last few days a problem with books that I just discovered that I forgot I had, which is a sure sign. If you mentally don't know what you have, that's a sure sign. That reading guy says, my books are out of hand. You say that every year. I swear I know. I do say that every year. But this time I mean it. And then at every Brattle Hall, you say, I have no idea what happened to my previous copy. It's true. But I don't always say that. In fact, in every Brattle trip, when I'm pulling a book off a shelf and saying, oh my God, I don't have a copy of this. There are plenty of books in that same Brattle trip where I'm saying, I do have a copy of this, or I don't, and I don't. Oh. Hi, baby. How's the little baby? How's my baby? What are you doing? You want to go over to your chair? You want to go across the Bering Strait? Mm-hmm. Go ahead, baby. You can do it. There you go. Now what are you going to do? Huh? Oh, you're going to make a bed? You're going to dig around over there? Or are you too sleepy? Maybe you're just going to settle down right away. You seem like you're in a bed-making mood to me. Yeah, there you go. Oh, no, there you go. She just settled down. My little girl's getting a little older. She sometimes settles down right away. Sid says, have your Kindles been misbehaving recently? A lot of people are facing weird bugs after the latest update. Thank God for airplane mode. I haven't checked. I've been reading on the iPad. Huge amount of reading on the iPad, so I haven't checked. I make the huge mistake of not putting my Kindle in airplane mode. I really should. I don't have it. I don't have. Oh wait. Well, this isn't the one that I usually use, but this one is here. What would this look like? This acting up. I wonder what form would it take. Okay, all of my latest uploads are here. Let's take a look and see. Nope. Nothing wrong with this one. This is new. Okay. We'll have to check and see. Let's see here. The Crossroads 76 afternoon, Steve. Crossroads 76. I don't think I know that. Joseph reads books. My arch enemy. One of my many arch enemies. I have the same problem like now on a smaller scale. My collection is out of control and I spend more and more time on my Kindle. I need to sell some books so I can buy another e-reader and maybe save some space in my house. Well, that's another pretty active point for me. I'm trying not to stress too much that either, but I do a huge amount of e-reading. A huge amount. I actively want publishers to send me an e-copy of whatever they're offering. Once upon, as I've said, and my friend Sam, reviewers when they've come on this channel have all said that for years and years, publishers would offer those e-copies and we would just ignore them. No, okay, great. That's in the fine print, but I actually want the book. Now I wait. I look for whether or not they've offered an electronic copy, even if I'm getting the book. Oh, now look at that. The second upload of my tag did indeed finish uploading. The first one is just stuck forever. Just absolutely stuck forever. Boy, that's another thing. Talk about Reddit. That's another thing that I should go on Reddit to find out. I should go on Reddit to find out why that is. Why that's happening. I can't be the only one it's happening to. But anyway, Lindsay Reed says, hi, Steve. Funny timing with your topic of excess books when I just filmed my first book unhaul. I have no regrets on the books I'm donating, and it was a freeing experience. I always like the feeling. I'm just I think the next unhaul, I guess would be the term that I would use, needs to be huge. That's all. It needs to be really big, not cutting around the edges, but cutting deep in the bone. Ryan says, I made a Stevestream. I hope you're enjoying the Dem convention, Steve. Your thoughts on the adventure of Augie March and Burgess's Enderby picked up both today in a discount bin. Well, my thoughts on Augie March are not positive, and Enderby is a journeyman work of a great writer. So you might like it, but you got a lot better Burgess ahead of you. And my thoughts on the Democratic convention, well, no reason to doom and gloom up a live stream, is there? Especially since I don't know when our next one will be. Rasmus says, I only own 200 books and still get rid of the ones as soon as I finish it. Well, I can't do that. I can't. I don't think I could possibly get to the point where when I finish a book, I get rid of it. I don't think I could do that. But there are layers long before that. There are books that I finish and I like, but as I've said for many, many years, and I haven't pushed myself to act on it, but having liked a book is not a good reason for keeping a book. If you read the way I do, having liked a book is not sufficient reason to keep it. There's got to be a whole suite of other reasons for you to actually keep a book. Liking it, no. Having reviewed it, no. Even thinking that you might find somebody down the line to give it to, no. Thinking that down the line you might need it, no. No, it can't be any of those things. Tolstoy 111 says, not Ragnarok, Gotterdammerung. Daniel Tenney says, should we be on the lookout for a new headline of a Boston man crushed to death at home by an avalanche of books? No, I'm not that bad. I'm not that far off. I mean, I have about north of 5,000 books, but south of 6,000. So there's no danger of that. There's no danger of anything like that. There's nothing that's teetering. There's nothing stacked on the floor. There's nothing out of control. But it's still too many. It's still too many books. Not so much. The main indication that I have is that I no longer know what I have, and that's bad. That's really bad. And I am choosing to view that as out of control on my library's part instead of that I am losing cognitive ability, as I haven't lost cognitive ability yet. It's been a wicked long time. Kevin J.N. Steve, while reading Gravity's Rainbow on my Kindle today, an app popped up on my page out of nowhere. An ad on your Kindle. Oh my. Oh, that would be a bridge too far. I have not heard that Apple is doing that. They would face a major backlash from customers if they did that. And they've been pretty good about the experience of using the Kindle. They've been pretty good about that. Wow, that's weird. Nietzsche and Wig. I have had Augie Marsh on my windowsill for over 3 years now and never got around to reading it. Same thing with Herzog. That's about where they belong. Roomham books like Dos Passos USA trilogy. I'm on the 3rd now, and it's phenomenal. Who's your favorite character, and are the illustrations standard? Well, the illustrations aren't standard in the new paperback. I forget who it was, but somebody came out with a new paperback of USA Today, a really good, solid, bright red thing that didn't have the illustrations. And I excuse me, on the chairside table here, I have the old Century edition of USA that does have the illustrations, and I was beetling my way through it very, very slowly, and I thought, well, okay, transfer this to the new book. I mean, the new book it's not as rickety, it's not as frail, and lacking the pictures actually hurt the experience for me. I went back to the older one. I don't have a favorite character in USA Today, in the USA trilogy, but I do prefer the pictures. I can't remember. One of you can probably remind me. One of you almost certainly has it. I can't remember off the top of my head if the Library of America room has the illustrations. I feel certain that it does, but I'm not quite remembering. The Crossroads. Thank you so much for all your reviews and suggestions. I just finished The Code of the Woosters. Fun read. Oh, good. J. Scott Phillips. I really need to clear out a lot of books. If only I had a local used bookshop that made house calls. Yeah, I know. A little bit of Jewish mother guilting there, but yes, I do have such a shop, which means I should not be in this situation at all. I need to fix it. I will pour out my heart at the Brattle tomorrow. Jay Rosen says, are there particular sections of the library that you want to cull? Yes, there are. I think I want to get rid of most of history, all of fiction, and then start looking strongly at biography. Do I need 10 biographies of Lord Byron? Do I need 5 biographies of Ulysses S. Grant? Do I need any biographies of Ulysses S. Grant? I don't know. History and biography tend to be sacrosanct, and that lets them overflow, and that's the problem. There shouldn't be anything that's sacrosanct except the stuff in the little book room. Brian Considine, given how many books do you want to enlist the Brattle? I will be enlisting the Brattle, yes. Albert says, I'd be very willing to take some of your hands if I may be this impudent. Well, yeah, I'm sure a lot of people would be willing to take them off my hands, and that would mean that in addition to getting rid of books, I would also be giving myself a $700 US bill. And I already lug books to the post office every time I leave this building, so it's a little bit tedious. Yeah, I know there are plenty of people who would want a lot of the excess here. I just don't know what the excess is going to be. I don't know if I have the intestinal fortitude to do any of this. Gola says, do it now. If you last hurrah, you may change your mind. Ryan says, when you move to get something out of the fridge but find a shelf of books there is a problem. Well, I don't do anything even remotely close to that. Not even remotely close. There are books on shelves. No books on the floor, no books where they shouldn't be books, unless you count the kitchen. But there are bookcases in the kitchen. Nothing like that. But still, it's too much. It's too many. I've reached that point. If I'm not going to do a God or Damarong, if I'm not going to do Ragnarok, I at least need a fairly strong contraction. Back to 4,000 books would be good. Sid says, oh no, poor David Murphy is going to get drafted in this war against your books, isn't he? I don't know. It could be. Nietzsche and Wick says, "What is the best thing Victor Sergey ever wrote?" Why, it's this again. It's just bouncing around subjects, which I don't have any idea. Monet Doyle is here. Oh no, Monet Doyle! The chat jumped as soon as I got to you. Oh no. Uh, oh no. All right, let's find Monet Doyle. The problem with jumping around, the problem with just dropping a new subject every time you make a comment, is that it is by implication insulting to the rest of the chat in that they're all boring, and also by the same implication insulting to me that I also boring. It makes the whole chat about one person. Here's what I wanted us all to talk about now. It's there we go. Monet Doyle, here we go. Hello, Steve. I like having the physical copy of a book by an author I like. Me too, but it's not a good enough reason when you're dealing with thousands of copies. Just liking a book is not a good enough reason for me to keep it. Maybe other people, but not me. Ryan says, as you know from Architectural Digest, bookshelves are to hold odd glass pieces, not for books. Yes, they're for accents. Jay Rosen says, following up on Albert, have you considered making some books available to your imaginary booktube friends? Not really. No, I haven't really. It's a huge amount of bother. And most times people are good about it, but every once in a while, and more, it's not unknown. It happens every month. Somebody's not good about it. Sorry, this didn't reach me. Send it again, or find another copy. Could you go to the Brattle and find another copy? And it would stun those people if I responded with "screw you." It would stun them. They have no idea how rude they're being, but it sticks with me. It sticks with me. That reading guy says, is Steve being censored by YouTube? Oh no, I don't think it's that. No, I don't think it's censoring. I think it's just that for somehow I am throttling the system. It probably has more to do with my Wi-Fi than it does with YouTube. Book Songs and All the Magic is here. Have you got a lot of books that have been sent to you for review that you can start with for the call? The review copies are one bookcase, and they are actually the least of my troubles. They are separate from what I'm thinking about because they have a natural progression anyway, completely natural, in a way that I guess on a larger scale, all my books should have. When I look at that, I was talking about this with a friend of mine just the night before last. When I look at the review copy shelf, it's several shelves, all broken down by month, going all the way to the new year. And extending back all the way to the beginning of this year. When I look at those shelves, I know what I want to keep instantly. With new releases, there's so much chaff. There's so much stuff that's just bad. It's boring, or it's make weight, or it's bad, or it's the normal fluff and filler of any publishing season. There's so much of it that's that. And then standing out like a beacon will be a real book, fiction or nonfiction, a real book. So those are the shelves, the one shelves where I don't have to agonize. I know exactly what I want to keep and don't keep. MANNE says, my new bookshelves were supposed to arrive yesterday. Half of my books are on the floor right now. Can't wait to organize them later. It's so fun organizing books. It is so fun organizing books. I'm thinking I might like to de-organize some of mine and see. Some Okie Dude says, hello, everyone. Monet Doyle says, I always have paperback books in my backpack. Some Okie Dude says, what hot take will you have today, Steve? Oh, no hot takes. No, I'm just talking about my library. My library has reached a tipping point. It needs to be dealt with. It is too big. It needs, at the very least, the most timid response that I could give here is the one I probably will do, the one I do 50 times a year, which is just a major contraction. That's all. Major contraction isn't good. It doesn't cut into the living bone, and I need to do that. And that'll only hurt for a week, and then I'll be over with. The Crossroads says, Steve, have you read your histories Herodotus? If so, did you enjoy it? Okay. So Crossroads 76, I'm assuming you're new here. I'm assuming you're very new here. Okay. It's a have you read question at the 35-minute mark, and it's not just a have you read question. It's have you read effing Herodotus? Yes, I have. And I did enjoy it. Yes. Is there any possibility that you could be listening to me and know anything at all about this channel and think the answer to that question would be no? Oh, okay. All right. I'm not gonna yell. Unless this is the very first moment that you have encountered this channel at all, that question is like asking another adult on the sidewalk, hey, there's a city called New York. Have you ever heard of it? I, okay. All right. Never mind. That reading guy, can you use a different device to record your videos? I have a number. I could use my phone. I could use an iPad. I just don't. If you mean, can I use a different device in order to see if that logjam happens? I can't see how the device I'm recording on would make a difference. Andrew McDonald says, you inspired me to check on the lit crit section of my secondhand bookstore. I bought David Lodge's Right On. It looks good, but I don't know how you rate him. But you bought it before you knew. Oh, interesting. Albert says, no, not a have you read question. Well, Albert, it wasn't just a have you read question. It was, have you read Herodotus? Background noises are welcome now. Nietzsche and Wig says, I have 4 rooms full of books, including books on my fireplace, bedroom windowsill. Winston Vidal says, why wasn't Biden's speech last night in prime time? The mainstream media in the United States is actively colluding with Donald Trump to make him president again. It's the only explanation I can come up with. Some okie dude says, I was going to record a review of James Ellroy's The Black Dahlia. That'd be fun to watch. Tolstoy 111 says, so often is a book storage conundrum the Procrustean bed? I'm hoping not. That reading guy was right, though. I do often go to the Brattle and say, I can't imagine what happened to this book. I can't imagine I ever got rid of it. I, in my own defense, when I say that about a book, it is never about a book that was my original copy. At least I'm not rebuying stuff at the Brattle. But, Nietzsche and Wig says, a wonderful channel is uploading a bunch of Gore Vidal's old appearances, including one with Hitchens, where for once Hitch was upstaged by a writer and by a wittier and kookier writer. Interesting. Brian Constantine, hear me out. Steve, surprise box, $25 a month, and you'll throw 5 or 6 random books in a box and send to subscribers. No one would do that. No one would do that. Ryan says, if you ever moved, what books would you take with you? Certainly the ones in the little book room. And probably, depending on the move, nothing else. Why would I? The ones in the little book room, yes. The ones in the little book room, that's 10 bookcases full of books, plus the bookcases. The bookcases were custom made for me by an old friend, so I want them as well. And they're tall and narrow. They fit perfectly next to each other. They would work in any space. But the rest of these things, when I've got 10,000 books on this, it would be crazy to take the rest of them. Colin says, who is Jack Kirby's best inker? In my opinion, it's Vince Coletta. Waco 1340 says, hi Steve, did you like the Batman 66 comics? I did, in a way. Yeah, they're pretty fun. A lot of the tongue-in-cheek humor is very much niche enough for me, catty in a good way. I did. I liked it a lot like the cartoon Brave and the Bold with Batman, the Batman cartoon with Brave and the Bold. I thought both of them were well done. Some okie dude says, I'll be back. Daniel Tenney, I did indeed spring for all 3 of the Arabian Nights. Good for you. J. Scott Phillips, Jack Kirby's best inker was Joe Sinnott. Changed my mind. No. Sinnott, no. I don't think so. Show me an example. What would you be thinking of where Sinnott ever inked Kirby and made him look good? I can't think of a single example where that happened. Nietzsche and Wig, do you watch the Hoover Institute's videos? No. Andrew Roberts has done some fun interviews, including with Robert Service and Nicholas Sarkowski. Tolstoy 111 says, okay, no William Morris, but do you like Edward Albert's Flatland? No, I don't. Sam Fenn says, I believe the clock at the top and the percentage/time to finish all got smaller with the update. Okay. The Kindle update, I assume you mean. But that has not happened here. Do I need to just go into settings and see if maybe this thing hasn't received its update? I always assume that Amazon just pushes through the update. You don't have to. This is not like an iPad where you have to do it. I'm saving all of my updates on every piece of tech until David comes back here. Quaint Curious Volumes is here. I burnt a pot of oatmeal this morning, but came back and made some great pinto beans this afternoon. So yes, I'm winning. Thanks for asking. Don't you worry, darling. I'm not asking about winning. Not after that last Stevestream. No way. That was surreal. That occupied way too much of my time than when it was over. D Temple says, I have noticed when you say this stream will end after 10 if they ask the hour, you never say which hour. Sneaky. Well, we're not going to be having a Steve stream again for quite some time. So we might go long today, depending on whether or not you people stay interesting. Nietzsche and Wig, I don't like e-reading because I don't like reading off a screen. Okay. That reading guy says, do you get to keep the e-copies you get from publishers? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Well, a new publicist, someone who hasn't known me for 10 years, might send me, something with a watermark on it or that needs a password or something like that. And I just write back to them and say, no, I want an e-copy that I can keep. You either trust me or you don't. I'm not using a password. I'm not time clocked on anything. If you don't trust me, then fine. That's fine. Then if you want, you could sign me up for a physical copy down the line, which you'll send out with no strings attached. But I don't want anything with strings attached. No. I have a readership. I'm not a beggar at the back door. I have a readership. It's not as big as the stars of my profession, but I do have one. And I have all of you people. No strings attached. You either send me the book or you don't. Nietzsche and Wig says, do you have a favorite publishing house? I think mine has to be Penguin, practically aesthetic and affordable. Well, I always say my favorite non-Penguin publishing house is W.W. Norton, and especially the Liverite imprint. I'd say they're probably my favorite, aside from Penguin. Winston Vidal says, do you have any suggestions regarding the best places online to purchase posters? Trying to track down one of James Baldwin in Turkey, contemplating over his typewriter. Oh, no, I have no idea. No idea at all. Jay Oliveira says, I'm driving to Boston this weekend. Going to look for some old Westerns and fantasy stuff. At the Brattle? Perhaps we'll meet. Perhaps we'll use your car to go elsewhere. Nietzsche Wig says, best novel by Vidal. I've only read Julian. You're just going to keep changing the subject. You're just going to do that. My favorite novel by Vidal is Julian. I would also suggest Creation. Manne says, yeah, I have a few too many copies of Dostoevsky, although can a man have too much Dostoevsky? Yeah, a man especially can. Yeah. Noah Scotus says, what's the best book on the Revolutionary War? Which revolution? Nietzsche and Wig, I have several different translations of the Brothers Karamazov. I cannot bring myself to get rid of them. Colombian Thunder says, I like e-reading for comic books on my iPad. Started reading Astro City per your recommendation, and it's been so much fun. Isn't Astro City wonderful? I don't have any Astro City on the iPad. I have a huge amount of comics on this thing. Thousands and thousands and thousands of comics. But I don't have any Astro City. And some of it gets so good. I thought that I would start to dislike it right away because it's such an open pastiche of so many things that I really like. But then the subtle variations are, the subtle variations are worked in, and some of the stories are wonderful. Oh my God, especially there's one little story. It's not a main storyline at all, about a man whose wife has been edited out of reality, and he just can't let it go. Even though reality has been rewritten, he can't forget her. It's just 8 pages, but it's the best thing in the Astro City run. I would love to have the whole thing as an ebook. Let's see here. Erica Wallace, how do you spend so much time sitting and reading? Does your back get sore? Do you never feel like you should be doing something else? My back never gets sore. No. Do I ever feel like I should be doing something else, though? I get reminded. Frida will remind me if it's time for us to do something else. If it's time for me to get up and walk around with her or even play with her, well, she will let me know. Otherwise, what something else would there be? Reading and writing is what I do for fun and for a living. That's what I do. J. Scott Phillips says, my gardener just decided this would be a good time to trim the hedges right outside the window behind me. Who schedules the gardening at Hyde Cottage? Well, I'm suspecting that in this instance, your gardener is not really trimming the hedges. He's probably listening closely to hear what Gandalf is saying to you about that little ring. Sid says, "I've been reading a lot of your longer book adjacent pieces recently, and they are incredible to read." Oh, isn't that nice? Your register and erudition shines even more than your shorter book reviews. Well, when the longer pieces, I'm using a different register. I'm writing in a different register. Uh, so, that's very nice of you to notice, but it is very different. I intentionally switched the register. I switched the tone of approach when I'm doing what I call newspaper reviewing, which is just 500 to 800 words on some new book. I want that to be really enjoyable and really readable. But one friend of mine noticed that difference years and years ago and said, the 800-word newspaper reviews feel like they're being written in a jocular way by someone with a vast amount of reading experience. And the longer pieces are the vaster amount of reading experience just on the surface. But that's nice of you that you're going through that. I'm glad you're enjoying them. You continue. I'm talking about things like your year with the Windsors, a long piece about Regency romances, a review of The Crown, etc. Yes. Those were the old Open Letters Monthly, where we had a main magazine that came out once a month. And then on the side, on a sideline on the side, I had Open Letters Weekly, which were shorter reviews of books. But I had a main piece for the main table of contents, and those were longer. Those were 2,000 words at least. MANNE says, "Yeah, I have 5 copies of The Brothers Karamazov and Crime and Punishment. I think I need a few more." Sid says, "Also, your review of that one Stanton biography was hilarious." Yes, my Edwin Stanton biography. You should definitely include it in any future review collection. I think that the old Open Letters Weekly website was scrubbed of its comments. So unfortunately, you can't see that the author of that book left a comment on that review saying, not only is this the best review of any book of mine that I've ever read, it's also the best review of anything that I've ever read. And for a minute before he left that comment, I was worried that he wouldn't get the joke. I was worried that he would be one of these humorless writers that wouldn't see that the Edwin Stanton thing was supposed to be funny, that I was actually in my way complimenting him. Let's see here. Nietzsche and Wig says, "I want to get the Katz translation of Brothers Karamazov and possibly his translation of Crime and Punishment as well." You should. Crime and Punishment has a wonderful blurb right there on the front cover. The one I would get rid of would be the Pevian and Volkonsky. Anthony Lyman says, "Do you have any thoughts on James A. Michener? He wrote some great saga-style books like Texas, Chesapeake, and Centennial." Okay, we have new people in the chat. I guess if these chats are over 100 people and if we're doing them regularly, that's expected and it's good. New people are welcome here. And there's no way that I'm going to start that I'm going to throat clear on a live stream by saying, please assume that I have read the marquee, absolutely basic names that you are about to bring up, so that I don't get to have your red question about Herodotus, which is bidding fair to ruin the rest of my week, let alone the rest of this live stream. You do not need to explain to me what James Michener wrote. You do not need to do that. At least you didn't ask if I've ever read him. But you don't need to explain the books that he wrote. Assume that I know, especially when it comes to something like Herodotus or James Michener. I have plenty of thoughts on James Michener. I think he's underrated as a craftsman and really, really enjoyable. Although some of my favorite books by him are not the standard Michener saga type books. Some of my favorite things by him are not that. They're other things that he did, shorter profile pieces or novels that are not sagas. Jay Oliveira says, "A quick graphic novel recommendation for you guys, which is by S. Snyder." Well, that recommendation did not come from me. That reading guy says, "Library of America does not have the illustrations of the USA trilogy." Oh my. Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, wait. And then the chat jumped, probably out of shock. Why wouldn't they? That's so weird. Okay, well, it was that reading guy again. He had 2 back-to-back comments. There we go. What about your mass market collection? I don't have those anymore. The old Signet mass market. I don't have them, and I also don't have the old Greenspine Penguin, the old pale green spine, Penguin Modern Classics, or whatever it was called. I'm pretty sure that the old Signet mass markets were illustrated, but I don't know. I don't have either one of them. I just have the one copy now. Mark says, I've been skimming some old quaint etiquette manuals on Project Gutenberg lately, and we've got to start calling people ill-bred again. It cracks me up. Why did we ever stop? Well, I think we stopped. I think we stopped for good reasons because although it has a specific meaning, it can bleed over where it doesn't want to go. The Big Shep says, I don't know when you were last there, but do you have any favorite bookshop in Iowa City area? Well, I don't. Surely nothing that I mean, Prairie Lights will still be there, but like for instance, the Haunted Bookshop, I don't know if they'll still be there. I have no idea. I doubt it very much, considering what the last however many half a century has been like. I I I applied at Prairie Lights eons ago, and they didn't take me. It'll be here, don't you worry. It's about 2 miles off. But I don't know if the Haunted Bookshop is still around. Spent a lot of time in the Haunted Bookshop. J. Scott Phillips says, my weakness is buying multiple copies of the same book just for the different cover art. Is there a 12-step program, something you could recommend? Discipline obviously isn't working. Well, I'd be the wrong one to ask, considering how many copies of Pride and Prejudice I have, or Moby Dick. I'd be the wrong one to ask. Sometimes it's just irresistible. Sometimes it's just irresistible. That reading guy says, wait, the chat isn't already boring? Nietzsche and Wig, do I need ceremonial everyman copies of everything I've read? No. Do I need 5 different translations of TBK and 2 different translations of Demons and C&P? Perhaps not. No, you don't. Tim's too many books. Too many books. That might be an acceptable name for a booktube channel. I have too many books. No offense to your channel, but I have too many books. Alex Blair says, my rule for whether or not to keep a book is if I think it's worth a reread. Yeah, but that won't work for me. That won't work for me. I have made this mantra to myself for the better part of a decade. The fact that I reviewed a book is not sufficient reason for me to keep it. The fact that I liked a book is not sufficient reason for me to keep it. The fact that I might reread a book someday is not sufficient reason for me to keep it. The fact that I might find somebody to give it to down the line, but don't have one now, is not sufficient reason to keep it. Maybe, theoretically, the fact that I might use a book for a review, so some piece of writing down the line, might be a reason. But when's the last time I did that? No. It has to be that I actively love it. Albert says, well, I'd be willing to travel the Atlantic to help you with your problem. J. Scott Phillips says, have you ever considered installing a little free library on Hyde Cottage's curb? During the pandemic, I did put a box of books out there because they were still trickling in the mail, and there was no way for me to get rid of them. So I put a box of books out there. It's on a main thoroughfare. It's on a main sidewalk. Everybody who's headed either to the shops or to the subway has to pass right in front. And people picked and pecked at them, but it wasn't what people wanted. They don't want, a new book about the latest piece of fiction, or a new book about football or World War II. They want a copy of Janet Ivanovich. They want something new that they know. Most people do. A little free library is a real good illustration of the fact that nobody reads. Nobody. Jay Oliveira, hello, Steve. I live close to Boston. I'd gladly drive there and pick up any books that you want to donate and bring to my town's library. Too much trouble. That reading guy says, how many new releases did you keep from last year? How many will you keep from this year? Out of all of last year, I kept about 25 books. And I doubt the number will be very different this year. It's like I was telling Sam just the other night. The real books leap out. They overwhelmingly announce themselves. Some of them don't. Some sneak by. Some are a little bit of subterfuge involved. Some need to unfold a little in your mind. But most of the real ones, most of the real books, fiction and nonfiction, right away, or very close to right away. Certainly I know on a reread. I got last year, I don't even know, probably 500 books in the mail, maybe more than that. And I kept 25. And I know that'll be true this year as well. So the new releases, the work bookcase is not the one I'm worried about. I'm not even thinking about it when I think about too many books. That's other stuff. That's all the rest of the stuff. Sid says, I'm thinking about getting rid of my very small 200 book library, mostly because I'm increasingly reading ebooks and even books I physically own. I'll probably just keep my landmark Caesar. Well, I have had this thought many, many times where what's a good example? What's a good example? Okay, well, there's a book coming out later in the year about one particular battle in World War II. And I have books that touch on that battle. And I thought about finding them, earmarking the right passages, rereading sections like that. And I went here instead because I have all of them as ebooks. So why do I have them as print books? Why would I have them as print books? J. Scott Phillips says, before streaming was so easy for movies and TVs, binging, did you have shelves and shelves of DVDs? I did. Yeah. Got rid of them all. Every one of them. I didn't keep anything. I don't have the technology to play them anymore, even. And I don't miss it. In that case, I just terraformed the whole habit. I moved it all to YouTube. I just got rid of everything else, all of it, just all of the machines that would specifically play those pieces of technology, and all those pieces of technology, just get rid of them all. I got rid of them all, everything. The VHS tapes first went out by the thousands, and then the DVDs and the special cases and the boxes, all of that went out, and it was all gone, never coming back. Poondog says, I bought books for $2,000 this month. Feels strange feeling of guilt. You spent $2,000 in 1 month on books? Yeah, okay. That reading guy says, public shaming, have you read questions is part of the Donna Huguenot experience. I try to be nice on this Stevestream, but have you ever read Herodotus? Like you're going to look at me, listen to me for even 15 minutes and think, I think there's a chance that this guy got to age 80 without reading this guy called Herodotus. It's people not reading the room. I don't make many requests. I'm not calling myself sexy. I'm not saying you shouldn't reprise a sports question, but if you're going to ask about canonical books, sorry, it's still bothering me. Some Okie dude says, I forgive you for your McCarthy hate because you enjoy Perdido Street Station and the amazing adventures of Cavalier and Clay. You're the one who needs forgiving because I'm not wrong about Cormac McCarthy. That's okay. I appreciate that we have some common ground. Albert says, I'd never be able to part from my physical books. I like every aspect of a physical book too much. I like every aspect of a physical book too much too, except for the lice and the mice and the silverfish and the inconvenience and the fragility and the fire risk, and the weight. Aside from that, I think they're just fine. The Big Shep says, Steve, have you heard of this little thing called Moby Dick? Very niche, I know, if you've never heard of it. I mean, honestly, Herodotus. Anyway, MANNE says, can someone compile a compilation of Steve absolutely destroying Have You Readers? I will be nicer if you think I'm being too mean, but that was unbelievable. Tolstoy 111 says, I was about to ask if you've read King Lear, but I bet you have and enjoyed it too. J. Scott Phillips says, when you do unhaul all these books you speak of, might we get some unhaul videos? Not a chance. Nietzsche Wig says, when reading, do pieces of music connected with the book you are reading come to mind? No. When I'm reading, I am wholly involved in the process. There's nothing else. There's nothing else at all. No people, no nothing. Winston Vidal says, what dog food do you feed Frida? She's extremely picky. She has a very weird relationship with food. She does not fall on it blindly and eat even the plate like my old dogs did. She's very picky. If the slightest thing bothers her, then she'll just go without. She'll go week without food, and without any diminution in energy either. She just, and I don't like that. It of course makes me nervous. So I found I forget the name of it. I found a particular kind from Trader Joe's that she seems to like. She eats it willingly when I put it in front of her. So not much, tiny little thing. She does not eat the way any dog I've ever had is, except for when I've had beagles who were very old and they got like this. They got extremely finicky and picky and could go forever without any food at all until the mood struck them. But most normal dogs her age, she doesn't act like any of them. I forget the name of it, but she likes it. That reading guy, how many of the books in your library are not available as ebooks, such as those old dusty Boston books from 100 years ago? Would you get rid of those? No, I wouldn't get rid of anything that I know for sure is not an ebook and never will be. But that's no more than 20% of the books that are out here. I'm not talking about the Little Book Room. Little Book Room has a lot of books that are not ebooks, but the books that are out here, I'd say probably only 20% of them are not available as ebooks. And even then, what does it matter? They're still going to be available. I mean, if worse came to worse, either the library, I could go on eBay and just buy one. There's still no reason for the fact that there's not an ebook of it is not a reason to keep it. Some okie dude says, "What do you like, Steve? LOL." Okay. Tolstoy, one of them says, "I bet you like Edward Bellamy's Looking Backward." Probably not, though. No, I don't. Of course I don't. And you don't either. Jay Rosen says, if you sold random selections of your books by subject, I think that would draw interest and people would pay for the media shipping. Still, I hear you. It's a lot of work. Oh, no. I'm not a storefront. If I'm going to get rid of them, I'm just going to get rid of them. I'm not going to, I mean, I appreciate the running joke here, but I'm not going to go into business of selling books. No, not at all. Albert says, I normally never buy duplicate books, but I'm very tempted to buy another Spinoza's Ethica. They have discovered a formerly unknown original copy of the text, which supposedly adds lots. Okay, I just have, who was it? 6 or 7 years ago, some publisher came out with a snazzy little paperback reprint of George Eliot's translation. I have that. I don't have any other copies of it. Ryan says, I watched an older video of yours and you were collecting the Catherine Aird murder mysteries. Do you keep those paperbacks? Would you recommend? I don't collect things to put them behind glass. If I'm collecting, it was because I recommend them. They are very, very, very good. And those old white mass market paperbacks have lovely art, they're just lovely design. And I actually don't know how much Catherine Aird I have as ebooks. That's actually worth a look-see here. Yeah, I don't have any. So she might not be readily available as an ebook. Nietzsche and Wig, I too enjoy reading your old, longer pieces, especially destroying books which are bad. I would love to do that. It must be so cathartic. It's not as cathartic as you would think. For me, anyway. I've known some critics for whom it was, but for me, it's not as cathartic as you would think for a very simple reason. I want to love every book I review. There's a nice release, sure, in being funny about that sort of thing, but I want to love all these things. It would only be cathartic if I thought a book was getting its just desserts, but instead, I'm just disappointed. Ryan says, when can we expect a shirtless video opening like Joe Spivey did recently? It's not going to happen. Oh, his parody was hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. Wouldn't be surprised if it got him lots of subscribers who just didn't get that it was a parody. We're hoping he'd be shirtless in every video. AOK's yo Steve, yo. Nietzsche and Wig, I clicked so fast for that shirtless Joe Spivey video. I know, he was doing it to mock, but he put it in the thumbnail in exactly the way that the people who aren't doing it sarcastically do in order to get massive amounts of traffic. And I bet it worked. It's the thing that writers that he loves and that I love in common. We both love writers who have long since pointed out that the best satire goes in like a painless knife, so the victims don't feel the cut. They don't know they're looking at satire. Colin says, is one able to understand George Chapman's translation of Homer with a basic understanding of Shakespearean Elizabethan literature? You don't need a basic understanding of Shakespearean Elizabethan literature. You can understand it just fine. Once you get used to his bombastic style, you can get used to it. You can understand it just fine. You do not need to do secondary reading for Homer. J. Scott Phillips says, maybe you should have a sign on the wall behind you next to Erasmus that says, no, have you read questions? Thank you, the management. Herodotus? Do I look or sound like someone who would not have read Herodotus in his 7th decade. Oh yeah, I'll have to get to him. I'm just unbelievable. Sorry, that was an hour ago, and it's still bothering me. Rasmus says, "What's your favorite French translation of an originally English language book?" I have no idea at all. I don't have any idea. The Ellsworth Three Musketeers, maybe, or a few years ago there was a new translation of The Stranger that I thought was very good. No, I don't. I don't have any idea at all. Nietzsche and Wig says, "Is Battle Cry of Freedom a good history of the Civil War?" Yes. Big Shep says, "Haunted Bookshop is still there." Oh my! It's never busy when I go, but it's nice. No, they were never busy when I went either. They have 2 cats that will say hi when you're shopping. It was so never busy when I went there that if I found a particular thing on one of the shelves that I wanted, I would just leave it there and ponder. I would go off. I would bike, to Coralville or whatever, and or wherever out in the cornfields, and just ponder for a day, a week, 2 weeks. I knew it would still be there. In fact, I knew it would still be exactly where it was. It was mine to get or not get. And boy, oh boy, do you learn quick that is not true with the Brattle. uh, Sid says, "How are your year in reading lists shaping up? Is the crop of books noticeably better or worse than last year?" It's a pretty weak year so far. The lists are doing fine. I've got a few more spaces open on every one of them than I was hoping, but they're shaping up just fine. I am strongly considering dropping science fiction and fantasy, just not including it as a category. Don't like. I thought about that last year. I barely squeaked by with enough books that would even qualify. But I might just drop it this year. I don't know, and I also have to decide what I want to do with the lists themselves, with where they're going to go. Obviously, I want them on the new Steve reads, on this new revived version of my literary blog, where they used to live forever. And I'm thinking probably I will make those free. The year-end list, I'll just make all of them free. I'm gonna have to go over with David Murphy how to make a listing free, but I think I'll probably just do that. Nietzsche and Wig says, "No anti-Gaia in the stream today." Oh, is that so? That reading guy, will you keep all the books you keep because of nostalgia for the covers or specific editions? That's not a good reason to keep a book. I would hope that I wouldn't. They should be out in the wild where more people can get them. I don't need to have them. Tolstoy 111 says, "I buy Blu-rays because a good edition has extra stuff not available elsewhere." Kieran says, "Which e-reader do you own?" Well, I have this isn't it. This is the, actually, this will tell me what it is. This is the 11th generation Kindle, just the 11th generation basic Kindle with the raised bezels there. And I have 2 of these, and one of them is blue. One of them is the one with the blue chassis, and then I have the next Kindle Paperwhite, the newest Kindle Paperwhite. It's a little bit bigger than this. It's much faster, much lighter. It's a really. It's not the one that's sitting here for some reason, but it is the best e-reader. Just amazingly good machine. Just amazingly good. And I have a Kindle Scribe that's the full size page, which I do kind of like, but not enough. It gets in the way. It's not as convenient a size as this. Really, nothing is. And then I've got the iPad, 2 iPads. I've got this one, just the entry level iPad, and then the larger iPad Pro. I do reading on all of those, but right now I'm in a phase where I'm reading on the iPad more than on the Kindle. Colombian Thunder says, "I can't really stand YouTube or streaming video compression, so my physical movie collection has actually only gotten larger. E-reading has only made that easier." Yeah, see, I understand. I understand where I'm coming from here. I am not a visual connoisseur of anything, so I don't mind the compression. That's a legitimate complaint. If you can't stand to see it, it obviously wasn't meant to be watched that way. And if you can't stand to do that, then you would need the equipment to show yourself these things visually in the way that you want. I am undiscriminating in that regard, and so it's easier for me. That as soon as I realized that, that's when I started getting rid of the VHSs and the DVDs and whatnot, just getting rid of them, hundreds at a time, and knowing that that wasn't a case like with the books where there would be a rump that I would keep, that I was just going to get rid of them all, because I absolutely don't care about exactly that aspect, the visual connoisseurship. J. Scott Phillips, you keep waving that red framed iPad around. Maybe there is a blob wash in there somewhere. I'm sure there is. Well, let's take a look and see here. I don't think we have much to talk about. So, Frida, cut it out, baby. Pull your head out of your butt. Pull your head out of your butt. I don't think Boston has anything to talk about. And of course, your neck of the woods never does, unless it's an earthquake. I don't think there was last time I checked, there was a storm in the upper Midwest sloping down from Canada. We're going to start getting more and more of that as it gets cooler here, but not for a long time. Yeah, we don't have anything for a long time. Little bit of a blob of a storm going through Iowa. I doubt very much that will survive the Great Lakes and the Appalachians, so I doubt that we'll see it, and there's nothing else. There's this stuff here that a weak version of that might make its way up the coast, but I doubt it. I think we've got clear sailing for a long time. We had swampy humidity yesterday, all washed out overnight. Just gone completely. Blue Star Galaxy says, there are some books unavailable as ebooks, unfortunately. Example, On the Shoulders of Giants by Stephen Hawking. Want to come over here? Come here, baby. There you go. Here's my baby. I was talking about your eating habits, little girl. Let's see here. Oh, some oaky dude says, you shush, but I don't know who he's talking to. Andy Gaia is here. Okay, we were just lamenting your absence. How poetic that just as Nietzsche and Wig says, that with a frown, I show up here after like a 2-hour nap. Okay, but we don't know that he was frowning. He might have been happy. To Steve's amazement, I'm sure he of all people can relate. To 2-hour naps? No, I can't. No, sorry. Rasmus says, I thought Akutagawa was a big fan of William Morris. No one who has ever said they were a big fan of William Morris was actually a big fan of William Morris. Nietzsche and Wig is talking to Anti-Gaia. Anti-Gaia says, I was so flippin' tired, bros. Oh my God. Yeah, I know. It's so tough being frail. Let's see here. Albert says, the only one I know of who has to endure this amount of sirens live opposite a hospital. What on earth is happening there? It's not that many. It's not that many. I am the problem here, if you want to call it a problem, is that I'm on a major road out of and into the city. I'm on an evacuation route. So it's big, long stretches, comparatively few red lights, almost no interference. It abuts a train track for miles at a time. So there's this whole side of the road you don't have to think about. But most of the sirens are fake. There's no emergency. There's just one last jelly donut. That reading guy says, wait, who is an 80-year-old? Most 20-somethings have not read Herodotus. Not everyone is a nerd like Drunzo. I don't have any idea who. Surely everyone who's reached 80 is dead already. Anti-Guy says, I guess all of this god-awful heat in California has got me exhausted. Haven't been hydrating correctly as of late, too. Sid says, that have you read question was bizarre. Chances of you knowing Herodotus personally are better than you not having read it. Albert says, I'm in my 20s, and even I have read Herodotus. Andrew McDonald says, I was happy to give a number of books to the church fair. My only caveat was when I later wanted to lend a book that had been part of that pile. Yeah. Every once in a blue moon, something like that will happen. A blue moon. And then you say, or I say, then I kick myself and say, oh, geez, I wish I still had that. I thought I could lay my hands right on it. That's not a reason to keep a book. Anti-Gaia, I have one of those book donation deposit boxes literally down the street. If I need to do away with books, for that, I would have to lug them to my bookstore or the library. Now, those donation boxes are a godsend. Anti-Gaia says, I just got rid of my H.P. Lovecraft collection earlier. Don't need it. Nietzsche and Wig says, I paid €7 for the privilege of going to the nearest reliable charity shop where I happen to volunteer and offloading my books. The ones down the road are overwhelmed. Oh my, are charity shops overwhelmed with books? Cramerica Industry says, good evening, Steve. Saw in a recent video you aren't a big fan of Chernow's Washington biography. Curious what your favorite is. Probably The Indispensable Man, Flexner's. Excuse me. Fletcher's The Indispensable Man. It's not that I'm not a big fan of the Chernow Washington biography. It's awful. It's absolutely awful. Anti-Guy says, bro, you need a book deposit box near you. Well, I've got the next best thing. J. Scott Phillips says, why do a shirtless video when all of your videos are already pantsless? Well, but nobody knows that. The crown jewels are hidden. Jay Oliveira says, have you read any of these books written by Brazilian authors? I'm going to skip. I've had enough have you read questions for 1 week. Thank you, let alone one day. Michael Clark says, have you done any videos on your favorite true crime books? What's some of your favorites? Hoo-hoo. No, I haven't because I couldn't. I couldn't do it. I have not read much true crime aside from Ripperology. I have not read much true crime for most of my reading life. And then at the early part of the summer, I made up for a lot of lost time and read a ton of true crime for an editorial project I was being paid for. And I was shocked at how bad a lot of true crime writing is. I was shocked at how awful it is. So no, I couldn't do a top 10 list at all. Aaron 007, in fairness, not many 27-year-olds have read Herodotus. Colin says, thanks, Steve. I was a big fan of reused prose translation. I've been trying to challenge myself into reading classic translations of antiquity, especially Elizabethan translations. The Elizabethan translations are fun. They're fun on their own. If you feel a little bit out of your depth, the Iliad entry of Wikipedia will do just fine. That will do just fine. I'm sure that the Iliad entry for the Iliad entry on Wikipedia, I'm sure breaks it down book by book into a plot summary. I'm sure that it does. That's all you need. Then you can deal with how much fun the actual translation is. Some oaky dude says, I know you read comics, but have you read, I'm not going to do any have you read questions, thanks. Damien P says, why do publishers keep using that awful coating on so many trade paperbacks? It's like matte plastic, leaves fingerprints. I know, I'm assuming it's the cheapest. Publishers really hate readers. They really do. MANNE says, I know I probably shouldn't get duplicates of books I already own, but my Wordsworth, Jane Austen collection and novels all look indescribably awful. Yeah. Some of those of Wordsworth paperbacks look pretty good, but not the Jane Austen ones. No. The thing is, though, it doesn't have to be duplicates. Find yourself a nice Jane Austen set or a bunch of different ones. All of mine are different. They're not part of any set. And then get rid of those Wordsworth ones. Anti-Guy says, I should drink a liter of water right now. Well, not all at once, but you should have. I said in an earlier Stevestream that you should hydrate until your urine is absolutely colorless. And a nurse got in touch with me and said, no, that's not true. There should be a tinge. Absolute colorlessness is probably overhydrating. But even so, that is true. I'm sure that's true. The person was completely knowledgeable, but you don't drink enough water by far. So you're nowhere near getting to that point. I'm assuming that's why I'm so tuckered out right now. I hope it's not some kind of sleep apnea. I'm skinny as a rail, so I don't see why it would be apnea. Well, now I need my nurse friend because I don't know that apnea is directly connected to size, always. But regardless of the sleep problem, I would assume usually if you're an American, then your sleep problem is arising from the fact that you never move, that you much less exercise, that you never exercise. Your body was made to exercise. You evolved running under the hot African sun. Your body is made to do that. And most people, 99% of the people in the world, don't at all. And that affects their sleep. It could be also that you are staying on your phone all the way until the last minute when you close your eyes. That could be affecting your sleep as well. But regardless of what any of those things are, you aren't drinking enough water. So you should drink more water. Jay Oliveira says, I'm curious to know. You're responding to somebody else. Nietzsche Wig says, I love the feel of physical books so much, I doubt I will ever give them up. I also love looking at them. It's almost erotic, this fascination I have with print and paper tomes. They are like candy. Okay, the sirens are being active tonight, now you've got me conscious of it. You see, they stop because they do that in order to blast through the intersection. And then once they're past the intersection, they know they don't have another one for a long time. And I like print and paper books too. I would never have a house without them. I just have too many. That's all. Albert, taking or rather once having taken, talking or rather once having talked about science fiction, are you still continuing your Dune series? Okay, I don't know about the setup, but I have lapsed on a chapter by chapter buddy read of Dune. I have lapsed on that. I haven't gotten much in the way of people wanting it back, so I just didn't do it. I haven't finished the novel. I should at least finish Dune and then maybe make a playlist. The Big Shep, the best / worst SFF novel lists are some of my favorite things on Open Letters. Don't kill them. Well, I don't want to kill them either, but what point is there? If a major science fiction publisher in the United States, no names, mind you, if a major science fiction publisher in the United States has a listing for their winter catalog, so, or let's say their autumn catalog, so that's a huge chunk, that's a quarter of the consideration that I would give them for the year. And in that listing, there are 16 books, and all of the books are either Afrofuturism or the 17th book in a series about the adventures of a 5-foot-tall take-charge girl boss who don't need no man. So the entire list is Twitter politics. All of it is. Well, that's never going to be any good. The writer of that book does not care about science fiction. They care about making sure you know that your grandparents were horrible people. And if that infests an entire listing of an entire major publisher, by the end of the year, you're not going to have much to recommend. I don't want to recommend Twitter politics, and there's never going to be a reason to recommend the 90th book in a series. And that, take those away, and what have you got for the science fiction world in the UK? I mean, in the US. Alex Hardy says, any recommended translations of On War by Clausewitz? No. Nietzsche and Wig, I've graduated from Wordsworth Classics because the font is just too small and I don't want to strain my eyes. I might give away my vintage Dr. Zhivago for similar reasons. Yeah, the Wordsworth, don't get me wrong, they're great for what they do. They allow a person like a student or someone with a low-paying job to walk into a new bookstore and buy 5 books without destroying themselves. 5 books from a normal retail publisher, 5 books would be almost $100. So you'd be destroying yourself to do that. Whereas once upon a time, you could do that. You could walk into a bookstore and get 5 books. With Wordsworth Classics, you can still do that, but they're not particularly attractive, most of them. Anti-Gaia says, Steve, I have a decent flat case for my tablet, but I want to get one that's softer on my arms or lap. Yeah, I don't so much have to worry about that because I don't really feel it. I had the keyboard case on this one. Do I have it here? Yes. I had this folding keyboard case on this iPad until just recently. And then I realized I was picking it up and I was, I was worried about it. It was delicate. The case was flapping all over the place. And then I realized I had a moment where I thought, when's the last time you used that keyboard? This is actually filthy, isn't it? I asked myself, when was the last time you used that keyboard? And the answer was that it had been a long time, over a month. So that's when I went looking in the tech cabinet for a holder that isn't a keyboard holder, something that has rubber for nice gripping. It has this handle here for even nicer gripping and also for just setting it on a table like that. And I just put it in here. So this is much easier to do. And I'm saying right now, this is what I use for reading, but I switch back and forth. This is awful convenient. So I could easily switch to another Kindle. It wouldn't be that one. It would be the new Kindle Paperwhite. J. Scott Phillips says, I'm getting the impression you need to get rid of so many books to make room for all those e-readers. No, I just have the standard amount. I'm trying not to over collect on tech either. The only piece of tech I currently want is an iPad Mini 6 with 250 gigs of storage. Okay. I want an iPad Mini 6 with 250 gigs of storage. I do not need the cellular version. It'd be tempting, but I don't need it. But the iPad Mini 6 comes in 2 storage sizes, 64 gigs, which is just a handshake and a hello, and suddenly you're out of room, or 250 gigs, which is nice and generous. 250 gigs on that thing. I could load it with comics. I could load it with books. I could put 15,000 books on there, all the apps that I want, and I would never run out of storage. I don't use it for gaming. I could film on it. That's the next piece of tech that I want. The only other piece of tech that I want, because right now I have the standard trio. If you don't count my phone, which I barely ever use. It's just, I'm not on the phone. I barely ever use it. If you don't count the phone, I have the standard trio. I have an e-reader, a Kindle. I have an iPad, and I have a MacBook. Some variation of that. Only one MacBook that I currently use, but a bigger iPad, the really big, the 12.9-inch one, or the slightly smaller one, and an e-reader of some kind, a Kindle. But if I had an iPad Mini 6, there are all sorts of things you can do with an iPad Mini 6 that you can't do with, for instance, the iPad Mini 4, which is the only later one that I have, that make it into a Kindle. You can remove the backlight, the blue light. You can set it up so that it affects your eyes and your reading just exactly like a Kindle. And that would remove a device completely actually it would remove two devices. It would remove all the other iPads, and it would remove the Kindles as well. And for all I know, it would remove the MacBook with a remote keyboard. The iPad Mini 6 has more processing power than the MacBook that I'm using now. That's the one I want. But anyway, some okie dude says, have you read? Yeah, okay, no. Rasmus says, I'm not going to do that, so you can stop asking, have you read questions. Rasmus says, do you seek out first editions of the books you like? No. What would be the point? No. Oh, no, the chat jumped. Oh, no. It was Anti-Gaia who's doing this. I digressed way too long with tech. I do that. I digress with tech. There we go. Steve, were you impressed with Biden's energy at the speech last night? If only he had that same energy at the last debate. Well, I was impressed by it because it's historical. It's only the second time in my life that a president has ever done this. And that's wild. Most presidents are obviously very egotistical men, and it's one thing for LBJ to say, no, I'm not going to run again because I've got this war hanging around my head and I'm the most hated man in the country. It's another thing for Joe Biden, especially Joe Biden, a fighter like he is, to be told you have to make the same decision, but not because of a war, because of a bad debate. Oh, and he did it. And that's amazing. But I don't know about if only had that energy at the last debate. I think I agree with a lot of the commentators who say that we dodged a bullet. Alex Hardy says, do you find A Conflict of Visions by Thomas Sowell insightful and or have further opinions on it? I think it's dumb. MANNE says, I'm a big fan of William Morris. Chat, who's William Morris? No, you're not a fan of his. Nietzsche and Wig says, Hillary gave a great speech. Where was this energy in 2016? Nietzsche and Wig, it was there in 2016. It was right there in 2016. She was unbelievably convincing and coherent in 2016. She's just not likable. That's all. Nietzsche and Wig says, I lived in the same suburb of London as William Morris until I was 3. That is our only connection. Anti-Guy says, Hillary had plenty of energy. She was just cringe plenty of times. But don't forget, she did win the popular vote. If she won the popular vote overwhelmingly and was right in every pronouncement that she made about Donald Trump. Ryan says, can you share a time you had to review an odd book, maybe like a self-help or a cookbook? I could share plenty of those. I do one of those a day for the trade journals. I do one of those a day. They're not signed, but I at least one a day. Sometimes I double up. Like today was a self-help book. I think tomorrow is a business motivation book. They're all odd. In their own way, they're all odd. Nietzsche and Wig says, AOC should stop trying to sound like a black preacher. So cringe. Alex, I don't know what a black preacher sounds like. Alex Hardy says, speaking of Washington biographies, did you read Joseph Ellis's Washington and Jefferson biographies? I did. They're not good. They spin their wheels. They do a lot of padding, even for such short books. Columbian Thunder, never actually gotten round to Herodotus. Any editions you would recommend of the histories? I like Aubrey de Selencourt's translation, the one that is the basic building block for Penguin. But it would depend on you, which one you like. There are plenty to choose from. Sid says, some of those dusty old books you find at the Brattle don't have proper ebooks, but can still be found digitized online as PDFs sometimes. Not very convenient, but still something to think about. Right. they're not very convenient. It would depend. I need to go through this like the fire of the Lord. I'm not in the mood for it tonight, obviously. I've got a huge amount of stuff to do tomorrow, so I can't even begin. I need to just do more thinking about it, maybe with some help. Andy Guy says, "Well, Steve, you reviewed Say Nothing by Patrick Keefe. I think that was billed or labeled as true crime. That's where I remember finding my paperback copy at Barnes. Say Nothing was billed as true crime." Okay, I would never in a million years think of it that way. Quentin Curious Volume says Whigs should refrain from commenting on Democrats. Some oaky dude says, "All right, I'll stop asking the have you read questions." Well, you were doing it to be, a troll, but you wouldn't get any answers anyway. So better just to save your energy. The Herodotus thing sort of wiped me out. Let's see. Anti-Guy says, "If I thought AOC was being insincere, I would agree, but I didn't feel that way to me, although a sincere politician might be an oxymoron." I think you were getting as many sincere politicians as you're likely to see at the Democratic National Convention. You're surely not going to call my Beto O'Rourke insincere. J. Scott Phillips, "Whatever happened to your summer Trek videos?" Good question. Good question. We have 10 days left. I have the tiny consolation of knowing that I've made more Trek videos than anybody else, any other co-host, but that's no consolation at all. What happened to Summer of Trek? I have no idea. No idea. That Reading Guy says, "My Jane Austen set is mostly Norton Critical Editions." Not bad to have. Tolstoy 111 says, "Chapman's Homer makes quite a first impression. Someone should write a poem about that." Anti-Guy says, "Steve, I take a walk every day, every damn day. What counts as exercise? That counts as exercise, does it not? Maybe kind of. No, it doesn't count as exercise." But I wasn't saying exercise. I was saying just movement of any kind, which most people don't do. But exercise is doubled heart rate for 20 consecutive minutes. You'll know when you're exercising. It's not taking the stairs at work. It's not going for a stroll. It's doubled heart rate for 20 consecutive minutes or more. You know it when you do it. It's exhausting. And it's good for you. If you can handle it, if your body can handle it, it's good for you. Quentin Curious Volumes, "I didn't hear a black preacher in AOC's speech." Well, I don't know what that would be. So Nietzsche and Wig says, "Among the books I got because of your recommendation, I got the Penguin Book of English Verse, Oxford Book of English Verse, and The Indispensable Man." Kevin J.N. says, "Steve, Governor Murphy is giving NJ transit riders a free week of travel because of the poor service this summer. I can't wait to take a ride to the city to read my Kindle in Central Park." Well, that seems like a backhanded gesture, considering how bad the service was. Andrew McDonald says, "Was Colin Wilson's work of any use in your true crime survey?" Precious little. But where are any of the writers like him? Where are any of the writers that even come close? I was stunned by how bad and how lurid and how opportunistic so much of it was. I hate to think that is the readership, that the readership is that way. Some oaky dude says, "Is science fiction an inherently political genre?" I would say so, yes, but not inherently partisan, which is a huge difference, right? When the neck-bearded quasi-fascist dude bros on YouTube go on and on about how the blue-haired checkmarks, the leftist Twitter politic people at Marvel Comics and DC Comics have politicized comics, they rightly get raked over the coals by people who say that comics have always been political. But when the blue-haired activists say, "Hey, excuse me, read the room, not a good look, wrong side of history, comics have always been political," I want to come back to them and say, "Yeah, but they haven't always been partisan. You made them partisan." And there's a difference between those two things. Oh no, the chat jumped again. Good Lord. Colombian Thunder says, "Why don't you just tear down your house and rebuild the walls with your book collection?" J. Scott Phillips says, "Who was Herodotus's best inker?" D. Ziggin, "Do you like Sergei Lukashenko's Night Watch series?" Oh, the Night Watch series. Oh, I wouldn't have known the author, but I did kind of I think I read one of them, and I did kind of like it. Are there a lot of those in English? I think I read the first of those and liked it. MANNE says, "Are you a fan of the Alexander Pope translation of the Iliad?" Are people working around "Have you read"? Is that what you're all doing? What's your interpretation of? Is it true historically that? It can't be. You would never do that. I am a fan of Alexander Pope's translation of the Iliad. I am really excited to read it because I love the idea of a great poet translating another great poet. Auntie Guy says, I don't want a first edition, but a second edition of The Final Days of Woodstein. Same one that my parents got me in high school after I read the old 76 version from the library. Well, see, I would never, I have no interest, I have no understanding of why people want to do that. That particular thing, that this particular edition was on the shelf, you know, in the bedroom, or this particular edition was handed to me at graduation. Or whatever. I know so many people who have taken advantage of Amazon Marketplace or eBay to try and find that edition. I don't, that kind of connection with books, I just don't understand. Rasmus says, but please tell me you're a fan of Anne Rule. She's largely the best of the bunch, but what is going on in her books? What, take away the lurid parts, and what would be left, and how much money would she have? This is a serious phenomenon. This is a serious thing when societies produce someone, a human, a person in their midst that decides to start preying on humanity. I do like Anne Rule. I've never read an Anne Rule book that was serious, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And this is a serious subject. Some Okie dude says, oh, I wasn't trying to troll. I dig your channel, man. M-A-N. And he says, I also incidentally found a bilingual edition of Dante's Commedia with the Longfellow translation on the side. Good for you. Sid says, what happened to Summer of Sport as well? I was enjoying that a lot. Yeah, I was too. I am still reading lots of sports books. But after a while, I did more summer sport books than videos than anybody. But after a while, I realized, I don't know. In addition to rethinking my book collection, I'm also thinking a lot about BookTube. What about BookTube? I am always very slow to shed the neophyte mind frame. Very, very slow to do that. I remember, usually I need someone else to tell me to do it. I remember very distinctly when a Chicago books editor told me, why are you taking this tone? I've talked to you and I've read your stuff. You have read more than anyone who is currently working in the industry in Chicago, in the Midwest, in New York, in Boston, anywhere. So it's all right for you to sound like that. You don't have to sound like you sound now. And I think the same thing, I'm starting to realize the same thing about BookTube, that I've been doing this long enough so that I don't have to, I'm thinking a lot about BookTube. None of it ready for camera, but I'm thinking a lot about BookTube. And one of the easiest things, one of the things I came to quickest of all was, I don't want to do a BookTube video if the creator is gone, if the creator is dead, if the creator is openly contemptuous of me, for instance. Then I think it's high time that I just politely, discreetly, quietly just went my own way and didn't deal with any of that. I mean, obviously, if I'm going to scrabble for acceptance on BookTube, that's a losing game. There are a whole bunch of people on BookTube who are never going to be accepting of me, and that's all there is to it. And as I said in the last Stevestream, I have all of you. So I don't need to do that anymore. I don't need to do anything like that anymore. And that's when I was having that thought, I realized that Mark at Book Time with Elvis, he and I are friends. I'm not meaning to say that he doesn't want anything to do with me, but he doesn't want anything to do with BookTube. So as far as I'm concerned, there is no summer sport anymore. Somebody else could do something else. They could come up with an equivalent event. Sports writing should still get a spotlight, but I'm not going to do that. One can just die by the wayside because its own creator doesn't stick around for it. Auntie Guy says, I want the one with the white and blue and white or purple cover. Yeah, I don't get that. I don't understand that. Gina, Stand Your Books is here. I prefer to read on my Kindle, so even though I still have a lot of physical books, I'm not attached to them. I just like the look of a wall of books. I do collect a few vintage authors. I would like a wall, the look of a wall of books too, or even a room of books, the little book room. But not this. This is more than just a wall of books. This is a tsunami of books, and it's not necessary. It's just not necessary. Most of these things, if I want to touch them, I go straight to their ebook copy. If I want to read what Barker has to write about Branwell Bronte, I go to that biography on this device and read it there. That reading guy's back. What do you think of the new translation of Capital? Are there any good biographies, of Marx you recommend? I haven't got to the new translation of Capital because I'm still plowing my way through the old translation of Capital, the old Penguin one. The new translation of Capital is still more than a month away, so I've got time. But I'm plowing my way through the old one, and I was plowing my way through that old Penguin, and I was really enjoying it. I'm enjoying it more than I thought I would. I didn't remember liking it this much the first time I went through it. And weeks and weeks ago, I was doing that at home. I went to the Brattle Bookshop, and there was the sale lot was full of Marxiana studies, but also big biographies. And I thought, I took pictures of them. I wonder if I still have. I probably do. I don't get this phone has an enormous amount of storage, so I never get rid of any pictures. I wonder if I do still have. I took pictures of them, but I saw a whole bunch of Marx biographies, just a whole slew of them. Yeah. Are we gonna be able to make this out? I found a whole bunch of Marx books. And there was a whole lot more, including a lot of 600, 700, 800 page biographies. I didn't get any of them because at the time I wasn't really sure I wanted to commit. And now I kind of do. And they're gone. They're long gone. So I don't have any that I can recommend. I need to find some. Tolstoy 111 says, regarding Morris, Abbott, and Bellamy, they fall into this odd niche of always being mentioned in chronological Victorian lit, but I'll be damned if I've ever heard anyone enthuse about them. Yeah, and the people that enthuse about them are lying, especially Morris. Oh my God, he brings that out of people. Anti-Gaia says, I justify my lack of exercise by the fact that I'm not overweight in terms of pounds. I wonder what my actual body fat percentage is, though. But it doesn't just matter about that. It's not just a question of are you overweight and need to get rid of weight. It's that your body is made to do that. And it doesn't work correctly if it doesn't. Certainly sleep and also mental health. Two huge things that have the so-called mental health epidemic that is in all of the cheesy tabloid magazines is caused by lack of exercise. No one in America exercises, except the freaks who do it for Instagram. Nietzsche and Wig says, I have a volume of poems by Morris next to one by Scott. I've tried to read Morris a while back and gave up. Alex Hardy says, have you seen how many videos on YouTube have titles like how to read insert title here? Does this strike you as condescending or catering to a population that doesn't have confidence in their own education? Of course, especially condescending. Yeah. You will not see that on this channel. The equivalent on this channel, and it's not equivalent, will be me saying, hey, let's read this. And if I am better equipped to read some recondite work than you are, which might be the case, I have done a lot more reading than you have, and I've done it a lot longer. It'll never be in the case of instruction. It'll never be pedagogy. It'll still be, hey, let's read this together. And if I can help you, I will. I hate channels like that. I hate videos like that. Grammaticus Books is here. Steve, since it's Garbogus, would love to hear your thoughts on Lynn Carter. I have lots of thoughts on Lynn Carter, but you mean the books of Lynn Carter. And I generally like them. They are reliable picks for Garbogus. Drew's scale models. That's new. I am a converted ebook reader thanks to you. You also inspired me to read Austen and Trollope, you subversive knave. Why are ebooks on Amazon more expensive than the paperback? Sheer greed. It's a 99% markup. Anti-Guy says, speaking of Anne Rule, the adaptation of Queen of the Damned is awesome, not the miniseries. I mean the film with Ilea. Okay. Okay, the film with Ilea is not awesome. It's mostly awful. Just awful. Mainly because of the main character who, God forbid, might have been Aragorn in Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings movies. Mainly for the main character. But Ilea is terrific in the movie. And the scene where she sets the bar on fire, killing all the vampires inside it, amazing. Just amazing. But I'm afraid the book, Queen of the Damned, is still better than the movie. Nietzsche and Wig was next. I caught a glimpse of that before the chat jumped yet again. There we go. Are you a fan of Arthur Rimbaud? No. Andrew McDonald says, is Helter Skelter one of the better examples of true crime genre? Not really. It's pretty readable, but it is lurid. I guess it's maybe quixotic of me to think that true crime books won't be lurid, but I do want that, and I don't get it. I absolutely don't get it. Rasmus says, what is the best you've read about the subject of translation? That's my pet fascination for the moment. I can only read English or French. I still have an interest in language. Best book on translation, on the act of translation? Oh my, no idea. Although somebody, I think it was online, it might have been on book Twitter, or it might have been on my channel as well. Somebody suggested somebody ought to go through a million old books and reprint a volume of the translator's preface. That became an informal tradition in the 20th century, where in addition to the introduction to the book, editorial introduction and whatnot, there would be a translator's preface where they would talk about what the work is like to translate, what you're working with, what decisions you've made. Those little essays are usually no more than a page. They're always fantastic, and I love them. I wish somebody would make a book like that if somebody hasn't already. Albert says, you could adopt the project if you really wish, couldn't you? What project is that? Maybe you're not talking to me. Tolstoy 111 says, do you like The Water Babies, a fairy tale or for a land baby by Charles Kingsley? These are all really how you read questions. They're have you read questions in disguise, aren't they? I'm starting to sense that. No, I don't like it. Nietzsche and Wig says, my mom wants to move to America and work as a nurse there due to paltry pay in the UK. Is it really worth it? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Do not do it. Manne says, is there any book where the translation is better than the original? Aside from Vatek, you mean? The most famous example. But I'm sure there are plenty. None are coming to mind, but I'm sure there are plenty. Aaron 007, I read only ebooks and library books. I buy books and never touch them. They are collectibles. I am mentally ill, but I've accepted it. Andy Guy says, it might be more daunting and depressing because of our more shoddy healthcare system. Yes, right. America has an absolutely scandalous healthcare system. Doesn't have a healthcare system at all. But nevertheless, there's also stuff you can do for yourself. Hydration. I hate to say it, but nevertheless, it's true. And you all know I joke about freakish sleep habits, but hydration, really good sound sleep discipline, good food, good eating, and also exercise. Real exercise where you are tired and panting when it's over. Those are all things that anyone can do for themselves. Almost anyone can do for themselves, and they're so good. They're so worth it. They will get you to 70. That reading guy says, what will you be reading tonight? Well, I've got there's a brand new, I wonder if I could show it to you. There's a brand new book. I don't know if it'll have a cover. That's the problem. One of the things I'll be reading tonight is a new book on sleeping in birds. A whole book about how birds sleep that I'll be reading, and I imagine that will take me some time because I'll be chasing down a lot of the resources. So that's definitely on the agenda. Okay, this isn't loading at all. I swear, the Wi-Fi at Hyde Cottage. It's amazing that I have a booktube career at all. It's, that doesn't want to do it at all. All right, so what about on this tiny device? Will it come up here? You don't need color, do you? iPad is just down for the count. Very annoying. Let's see. See if this is any more cooperative. The werewolf villain. Okay. Huh. All right. I sent it to my my Kindle, but it appears not to have gone there. Rather annoying. Well, do I have the details? The deets, as it were? Pasquier is the author. Pasquier. 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 Birds at Rest. is the name of it. I sent that to my Amazon account as a PDF. So I'm kind of glad that I checked because it doesn't appear to be here. And that would be rotten to get all the way onto the bed in the little book room and have Frida curl up on top of me and have it not have to move. So I'm doing that. And then I don't want to spoil tomorrow's Epic Comic Book Wednesday, but I'll be reading that. I'll be reading that for Epic Comic Book Wednesday. And the Bird book is going to take me a while. And then there's the Letters of Seamus Heaney. I'll be still continuing with that. And then another thing that I was going to read tonight, but I burned right through it. I'm not going to reread it tonight. I'll reread it when I get the finished copy. Is this Tooth and Claw? This is a novella, a Longmire novella by Craig Johnson. This is in the Longmire series, but it's not a full-length book. It's this is an Unbound Galley, so this isn't going to give me any information. But it's going to be short. I don't know that these pages are even. Yeah, it's 180 pages. I have no idea what it's going to cost. I think it comes out in November, and it finds Walt Longmire in the extreme north, where in addition to a bad guy, he also faces off against a polar bear. Well, and I thought, okay, a Longmire novella about a polar bear, I will certainly dip into it, and I just burned through the whole thing. I read the whole thing this afternoon. I don't know. This was going to be on the pile for tonight. I don't know if it still will be. I think it might. It's not good enough. I mean, it's good, but it's not good enough for me to reread it right away. I'll wait until I get the finished copy. I thought it was terrific, just terrific, and I love the. It has epigrams in the beginning. One of them is where we get Tooth and Claw, Nature Red and Tooth and Claw. That thing by Tennyson. Who trusted God was love indeed, and love creation's final law, though nature red in tooth and claw with ravine shrieked against his creed. So it has that, but it also has a little proverb about bear attacks. If it's black, fight back. If it's brown, lie down. If it's white, say goodnight. Which I love. I absolutely love that. It's been ages since I heard that proverb. And that refers to the fact that if you encounter a black bear that doesn't run, that shows attention to you, you should fight. Black bears, most of them are about the size of a human. They're much more massive. They're much heavier, but they tend to be really skittish. They don't want to fight. So if you put up a fight, if it comes to it, and a black bear is interested in you, you should put up a fight, because that will probably disincline them. If it's brown, that's a grizzly bear. And you definitely don't want to put up a fight with a grizzly bear, because it will simply rip you to shreds. Instead, what you want to do is lay down on your face, spread your legs, make yourself a triangle so that it's hard to flip you over. Interlace your fingers behind your neck, put a scarf or a hood or a hoodie behind your neck. The bear is going to go straight for the base of your skull to break your spine so that you stay alive and therefore body temperature, but you can't fight anymore. So the bear can eat you at leisure while you are wide awake. So you want to cover the back of your neck. Keep your backpack on your back. So the bear is going to go at your back as well, and just hope. Most grizzly bears, if you do that, will maul you a little because probably you startled them or whatever, and then they'll lose interest. You're not in any way like what they usually eat, so they will lose interest and just wander away. And as I've said many times on this channel, if you are, God forbid, you are ever in that kind of a situation, do not get up right away, because the first time the bear goes away, the bear has not gone. The bear is nearby and is watching to see what you will do. And if you start to get up screaming and crying and bleeding fresh blood, it will attack again at 25 miles an hour when you aren't ready. And that'll be it for you. So don't do that. As much as your instincts are going to be screaming for you to get out of there, wait. Lay there and wait until the bear is gone. Wait until you're sure the bear is gone. A brown bear will not wait forever. And then you can try to patch yourself up and walk out. But polar bears, if it's white, say goodnight. Polar bears are even bigger than grizzly bears, and they are weirdly intelligent. Weirdly so. And also sneaky. They are crafty. Grizzly bears are stupid. And they're homicidal maniacs. They're rageaholics. Polar bears are not. at all. They're weirdly, eerily intelligent, and they know what they want. They will be extremely stubborn. Like I said, if a grizzly bear manages to maul you, tear your back, rip at your backpack or whatnot, it will then move off a bit and calm down a little and watch you a bit, and then it will lose interest and wander off completely. Polar bears don't lose interest, and they don't wander off. Once they fix on a target, that's what they want, and that's what they're going to do. And they have another ability that grizzly bears and black bears don't have, which is the ability to move in complete silence, even though they're a ton of meat. They're extremely disconcerting, extremely so. The only circumstance in which you are safe encountering a grizzly bear in the wild out on the ice is with a team of dogs. A grizzly bear will not risk a team of huskies. But otherwise, you're in big trouble. And Walt Longmire is in big trouble in this book, so I just burned right through it. But anyway, oh, sorry. Oh, my God. See, a 20-minute digression is what you'll get if you ask me what I'm reading tonight. Nietzsche and Wig is responding to somebody else. Ryan says, do you find you read faster on paper book or e-reader? I'm much faster on paper books for some reason. I'm faster on e-readers. I live all day on screens, so it feels completely natural to me. Nietzsche and Wig says, what approach do you take to reading Auden? I'm finding him rather tougher than Eliot. He is in many ways tougher than Eliot. Yeah, that's a really good insight. I just have patience. I just go over it and wait to hear phrases and lines from Auden that will suddenly come to mind when the world inspires them. When I see something and think, suddenly I realize, oh wait, that reminds me of, that's when I know that a poet is mine, when that happens. Anti-Guy says, then again, you can just numb the pain like the rest of America do with Netflix and crappy food, or dopamine, or just scrolling, just endlessly scrolling. Yeah, but those aren't healthy. Food that is food, in moderation, exercise at least once a day, healthy sleep habits. Let's see here. Anti-Guy says, not that the food in the UK is anything to write home about. I hear it's awful. No offense. Albert says, what fascinates you about Marx? Nothing so far. I'm just finding his book really, really interesting. It's a part of my mind is reading it like if it were science fiction, and that's really helping. His writing can't be good with that Hegel influence. No, I'm not minding the writing at all. Sid says, I started reading a complete edition of Edna St. Vincent Millay's poems after your recent Poetry Thursday video on her, and I think I found a new favorite poet. Thank you. I wish I had. There was a white trade paperback, and also hardcover, of the complete Edna St. Vincent Millay. That's the old Edna complete that has never been superseded by another collection as far as I know. I had a copy of that forever and ever, and I don't anymore. I used to go back to it forever. I beat up. I had a trade paper of that I read until it fell apart. I went out and got another one, read that until it fell apart. I just haven't seen it in forever. The Brattle will provide. Nietzsche and Wig, oh no, it was responding to somebody else. Calamity Thunder says, Queen of the Damned movie exists in my memory as a strange gothic fever dream. Yeah, that's one way to put it. D. Ziggin says, Steve, is Dracula's Guest worth reading? Is it any good? It's good. Sid says, does Reclaiming History count as a true crime book? No, no, it doesn't. D. Ziggin says, Steve, who's your favorite stand-up comedian? No idea. No idea. Maybe Lewis Black? Maybe. Albert says, I meant summer sports with the project. Apologize, wasn't thinking of the delay. There's plenty of delay here. That's the problem with this Stevestream. And I'm not ignoring all of the comments except for the people who do super chats, like most streamers do. But yeah, summer sports, I think I'm going to leave it. I don't think I'll do any more summer sport videos. I will still do the reading, but I don't think I'll do any more videos. Anti-Guy says, Executioner's Song is a true crime book. It just stinks. Mailer can barely contain his fawning of that psycho Gary Gilmore. Nietzsche and Wig says, what is the last time you read something that gave you chills? I remember reading Emerson and feeling like my own thoughts and feelings were being projected back at me. Unnerving, amazing prose too. I've never had that kind of chill. Read something like Uninhabitable Earth by David Wallace Wells. Something like that might give me chills, but not any of the kind that you're talking about. Tolstoy 111 says, is John Hawkes worth reading? He's become something of a footnote. No, he's not worth reading. J. Scott Phillips says you haven't read Herodotus until you've read it in the original Klingon. Anti-Guy says Confessions of a Serial Killer about the BTK killer was a recent one for me. That gave me the heebie-jeebies for sure. But look at it as a book. It wanted to give its reader the heebie-jeebies. It did not want to do much other than that. And I read one book after another like that. And that the subject is important. The subject is important. And it's more interesting than just the heebie-jeebies. MANNE says, yes, yesterday I opened up my Penguin edition of Anna Karenina and Eugene Onegin to read about the translation process and decisions. Really interesting. Yeah, that's a book that somebody, it'd be a nightmare to get the copyrights, but somebody ought to make a book on the translator's art and just reprint all of those prefaces. All those old Penguin classics, they all have it. They all have something or other, whether it's a paragraph or 4 pages. And they're always fascinating. Rasmus says, when you review a work in translation that gets frequent translations, like Crime and Punishment, are you judging it on its readability compared to previous translations or some other metrics? It's always in comparison to other English translations, unless I can read the original, which I can't with Tolstoy or Dostoevsky. If I can read the original, then that's an element of the review as well, is what kind of a translation is this? Can you trust it? Even though in my reviews, I try to stress that is a secondary question. The number one question would be, can you read it? Regardless of how trustworthy it is, regardless of how much fidelity it has. Can you read it a little? Even a bad translation will get your foot in the door of the world of that author. And that's the most important thing. Alex Hardy says, how do you like the Plantagenet fiction of Sharon K. Penman? Any favorites? I like it. It's a little bit plodding. I've always thought it was a little bit plodding. I should have liked When Christ and His Saints Slept a lot more than I did. Considering how much I love that exact time period and all the characters in it, I should have loved that more than I did. Here Be Dragons, for God's sake, I should have loved it more than I did. And I thought, well, am I being too hard on this? It's not adventurous. It's very plodding. And then, Wolf Hall came along, and I know that I wasn't being too hard on it. I was exactly right. There is much better ways to write this kind of stuff. It's good, but that's it. Nietzsche and Wig says the awful contemporary poetry kids have to study here in the UK is scandalous. I'm sure. D. Zigan says, did you watch Beowulf 1998 with Christopher Lambert, and did you like it? I watched it. I didn't like it. MANNE says, one time when I ordered Crime and Punishment, I got Crime and Punishment, the comic book. Have you read it, Steve? I read a classic illustrated of Crime and Punishment a long time ago. Andrew McDonald says, I never quite understood the true life novel part of Mailer's Executioner song. Wasn't a mix of fact and conjecture. It's just junk. It's just Mailer navel-gazing from beginning to end. Randy Ray is here. Okay, so what are we talking about? Oh my God, I don't even know anymore. I have no idea. It started off with me wrestling about my books. I have too many books. I need to deal with my books. Anti-Guy says, Steve, here's a riddle. Trump and Rogan on the left, Tool on the right, Fool. Match made in heaven, or heaven hath made a match. I do not understand that at all. I don't even know what the question is. Nietzsche and Wig says, I avoid contemporary fiction usually, but I am also anxious that my prose style might end up sounding too antiquated. So I think I should add some more contemporary stuff to my literary diet. Well, your voice will be yours regardless. I shouldn't be imitating anything that you add to your literary diet, right? I would hope. But I guarantee you there are contemporary prose writers that you would like. We just need to figure out who they are. That's all. Grammaticus Books, BookTube Challenge. Would you rather watch BroTube videos on Marcus Aurelius for 24 hours straight, or film a video while wearing a black Weezer t-shirt? Well, the t-shirt can at least be washed. D. Zigan says, what are your thoughts on Dan Simmons' Summer of Night and sequel? Yeah, we're having a lot of have you read questions smuggled in here because I lost my temper an hour ago. I'm getting that. I'm not familiar enough with Dan Simmons' minor works to really comment on it. Nietzsche and Wig, where are you? I know you were next. Who wouldn't be? There you are. I watched your minimalism video, in which you were wearing a jail orange jumper. Hilarious. Rum Ham says, would you consider doing videos going through an author's bibliography and briefly talking about each book? It'd be nice to get overviews like that from you. People wouldn't think that was boring. Quite a few authors I could do that with. Nietzsche and Wig, have you read prose so bad you burst out laughing? Plenty of times. Happens plenty of times. Rumham says a video like that on Erasmus might not be feasible, but Harper Lee would take no time at all. Yes, Harper Lee would take no time at all. MANNE says, yeah, Edna's poem Recuerdo, I keep going back to and reading. I need to get some collection of hers. Me too. I don't have a collection of her poetry, a print and paper collection of her poetry. Nietzsche and Wig says a video on your favorite contemporary historians would be really interesting. You should invite Stephen Kotkin or some other big cheese biographer onto your channel. The chat jumped again. Oh, but it doesn't matter because we have to stop. we just dropped the whole idea of stopping, but we do. We have to stop. We have to stop this Q&A. Let's get to the end and then stop. It's all Nietzsche and Wig anyway. Colombian Thunder. I like Norm Macdonald. I found his memoir pretty bizarre, though. Nietzsche and Wig. Have you noticed an issue with with period novels just using the period as threadbare background and not making an integral part of the story? Bad historical fiction, I think, is what you mean. I'm not sure, but I think what you mean is bad historical fiction. Sid says, did someone mention... That sounded like someone screaming. That would be new. Okay, well, let's press on here. Did someone mention the Plantagenets? I'm reading the Thomas Costain Plantagenet histories this year, and it's so unfortunate that books like these are forgotten now. He can tell a story so well. I agree. It's terrible that he's forgotten. Some Okie dude says, is James Elroy Dude Bro lit? No, but they think he is. That reading guy says, when is the next starter kit? Don't have anyone planned. I should make one. Nietzsche and Wig says, what is the best War and Peace adaptation you've seen? I've never seen a good one. Colombian Thunder says, have a good night, Steve. MANNE says, I accidentally bought an Orlando Furioso prose translation. Do you like it? I promise this is not a have you read. If it's the recent one, no, I didn't. I wrote about it. Rasmus says, this sounds serious outside. Yeah, it sounded like screaming. It's over now, and I'm not hearing any sirens. Of course, I wouldn't hear sirens when somebody's screaming. I don't know what that was. That was weird. Of course, the young people in this neighborhood scream hysterically like they were being knifed when they're happy, when they get retweeted. It's tough to know, but I'm attending to the stream like a true streamer. Notice no sirens. If somebody was murdered, you'd think there'd be sirens by now. You'd think this would be a crime scene. Albert says, I know of your... But now I'm never going to be able to convince you all that this is a good neighborhood. I'm never going to be able to do that because you've now heard humans screaming outside. Albert says, I know of your knowledge of Greek, Latin, and of course English. In which other languages do you read? The usual. Anti-Guy says, Steve, you should Kamala pull a page from Kendrick Lamar's playbook and go after Trump's connections to Epstein. She's not going to do it. She's not going to play hardball with him. No one is. Not the law, not the mainstream media, not the Supreme Court. Never. No one is ever going to do that until he dies of natural causes in 2047. No one is ever going to play hardball with him. As we're going to see, right? In what? A month. In a month, we're going to see a federal judge refuse to sentence him to prison. Randy Ray says Norm's memoir could have and Cetus have been much better than it was. Aaron 007, that sounded potentially serious. Yes, it did. It did. It's distracting me, obviously. But it's over. Where did it go? And where is the follow-up to what happened? That reading guy says, was the Magic Mountain not on your 100 list best novels ever written or best books ever written? No, it was not. Might be on a supplement. The supplements aren't done. Okie Dude says, okay, I'm sorry, I had to ask. MANNE says it's translated by Guido Waldman. Oh, that's not the one I'm thinking of for the one volume Orlando Furioso. Tolstoy 111 says sounded like a scene from Blood Meridian, or maybe they're just reading Blood Meridian. J. Scott Phillips says that was interesting. Did you look over at Frida to see what she was making of those noises. Yes, I did. She's right next to me. And I asked her what she was making of those noises. Because if it had been a dog, I would have just shut the stream off and gone, just flown down the stairs to help. I can be an enormous amount of help in a situation like that. According to Frida, it was a human. And according to her, it was a register she's never heard before. And she's never heard someone scream in actual extremis in her life. She can tell the difference between a kid screaming out of excitement and whatever that was. But aside from that, no. That reading guy says good night to Frida Bean. Columbian Thunder says sounds like a McCarthy fan found your road video. Andy guy says I feel Steve is responding thus. Once were a time my senses would have cooled. Okay, never free of. Okay. Grammatics books. When I come over for calzones, I'm wearing a bulletproof vest. I swear, there's no way you'll believe me. But at the first hour, we had endless sirens. Then we had a human screaming. But this is not a bad neighborhood. I swear. Ask anyone who's been here. It's just, there's no way anybody's going to believe me. Some Okie dude says, oh dear, I'm sorry I opened a canister of dude bro comments. Andy guy says he has supped. Okay. MANNE says, get out of here, Steve. We want to go watch your Jane Austen video already. Right. And that's the end of the chat. Those are the end of the comments. So I am going to wrap this up and go. Obviously, I have another element added to my evening. I had a whole bunch of things that I want to do, but now I'm kind of curious to find out whether or not someone was just murdered out on the street. I didn't sound it. There's no follow-up, no sirens, no police, no nothing. So did the person move on? Screaming the whole time? Were they in a car? It didn't sound it. I don't know. I have no idea. I'm never going to live it down, though. But it doesn't matter. Maybe streamer brain will kick in. Maybe you will all forget about this because it's going to be a while before we do another Stevestream. Should probably warn you about that. It's going to be a while before we do another one. They will happen again, but it's going to be a few days. So I'll wrap this up for now. Thank you all for attending. This was wonderful, except for someone asking me if I've ever read Herodotus. But I'll try to live past that. So I'll wrap this up and I will see you all next time, whenever that is. Thank you all.